of the actual process and some of the games we're working on, and then we'll have some questions. So I'm going to hand it over to Gloria, who will talk a little bit about the Cook Inlet Tribal Council and her background.
Great. So I feel like the introduction was appropriate because I do multitask a lot in my life. So first of all, again, my name is Gloria O'Neill, and the way that we introduce ourselves from Alaska is tell you where our parents are from. We describe our lineage. And my mother is from, and her family's from Pennsylvania. She's Scots-Irish. And my father is half Yupik Eskimo and Irish, so, you know, what a combination, right? And so my father is from a small community in Southwest Alaska. I am the mother of a newly graduated high school daughter who she's going off to college. And I also, as Alan said, serve as president and CEO of Cook Inlet Tribal Council, president and CEO of Upper One Games. So a little bit about Cook Inlet Tribal Council. I've been with the organization for about 20 years now. Started leading CITC in 1998. And our mission is really about the advancement of Alaskan Native people and creating opportunities and connecting people to their potential. And we do this through partnership. We have a budget of around $41 million, which we invest annually in the community across many different sectors. We help people find jobs. We connect people to careers. We work with families who are in crisis. We work with individuals who have issues with alcoholism and drug abuse. But one of our main investments is in education. We have a unique partnership with the Anchorage School District where we've demonstrated models of success over the last 12 years. And because our charge is so great in our community and across our state, and providing thousands of Native people with opportunities to find self-sufficiency and to reach their potential, we started thinking about 6 or 7 years ago, how do we create a model of true sustainability? If we want our people to be self-sufficient, how do we as an organization break the traditional molds that the federal government sets for us and really start thinking about how we determine our own destiny? And, you know, and thinking about how could we create a revenue stream that we could bring into CITC where we can invest in the community that will change the fabric of the way education is administered in the state of Alaska and demonstrate new approaches. And we also knew, this kind of funny part, those of you who follow politics, we also knew that we wouldn't always have a Ted Stevens in Congress. And so as we started thinking about sustainability on a deep level, and thinking about how do we continue to operate a budget that's significant and robust and creating opportunities, we, over a number of years, at least since I was CEO, built the organization from about, I'd say, $70,000 in unrestricted net assets to close to $30 million today. And so we've done that through careful approach to business management and ensuring that we were thoughtful, are aligned with our own values. So we started a couple years ago, and as we did our diligence about what were we going to invest in, you know, if we had this charge from the board, we first looked at, like, for example, real estate investment, and this is funny, we looked at funeral home investment and all of this stuff, and we kept coming back to that, our ultimate vision statement of how do we connect with our youth using technology and education. And about a year and a half ago, we were sitting in a restaurant in Anchorage, Alaska, and we do have really good food in Anchorage, sitting in a restaurant, and we were thinking about video games and the power of video games and how video games are a great equalizer, and this would be a wonderful way to reach our youth. So I asked one of our staff members to go out and find who is pioneering the space of education in video games, and find out a little bit more information about it. And that's where Michael and Alan of E-Line comes in. I said this, I said that if we have them come to the state in January, they've passed the first test with me. All Alaskans like people coming to the state in January. And what was really amazing, and Alan's going to talk a little bit about the partnership, that, you know, we found through this that E-Line completely aligned with our values. Our values meaning interdependence, that we really need one another to be successful. Respect, that we have mutual respectful relationships that are aligned with our values. And we share power responsibly. Accountability, that we do our diligence in finding the right opportunities. And resilience, that we have the patience and the grit that it's going to take to walk through challenges together and also really engage in opportunity. And through our conversation over the last year and a half, we not only signed a deal for our first consumer game 4 months after meeting E-Line, but we also said, you know what does long-term partnership mean to us? We want to be a part of each other's company. That's meaningful. And so as we are here today to announce the first indigenous video gaming company in the United States, really exciting that we're going to take that space. And we're going to be bold about it, that this is not just about making video games for Alaskan Natives or Native Americans. It's really about making video games for a global audience that's infused with our values, our cultural storytelling. We want to be at the table. We don't want people to do things to us or for us. We want to do things with the world. So we're really excited to be with E-Line.
So it was very interesting. I got a call from Pitta, who's here with the Inlet Tribal Council. She had actually, I think she and Gloria had seen a video that I had done here at Games for Change a few years ago, and was very interested in games for learning. And at that point, Michael and I had been talking about not doing more consulting. That we were really building, you know, we want to build a scalable developer and publisher, and even though we enjoy the consulting, but when Pitta and Gloria described what they were doing, what you just heard, we thought the vision was very, very powerful. Also, I mentioned to Michael that, you know, it's in Alaska, and he's like, okay, we're going. And I'm like, but you know, we talked about not doing, you know, more consulting. I've been to 49 states, I haven't been to Alaska. So it was interesting. We went up to Alaska because we really thought it was a powerful vision. We didn't know what to expect, and we honestly thought it was a short consulting. We agreed to do a 2-day consulting, and when we went to, just their conference room is remarkable. It's a circular table. You know, the words people, partnership, potential are very, very real with the council. We spent 2 days with them. We talked about the commercial game industry. We kind of did an overview of kind of how it works. We talked about the games for impact, games for learning, games for health, games for social impact. And we were pretty, I mean, we tried to be as frank as possible as to the risks, the challenges, but the more we got into it, I would say the more engaging the conversation was, the more we found, as Gloria mentioned, that we really were aligned on a very deep mission level in terms of what we were trying to accomplish at E-Line, what the CITC was trying to accomplish in the education space, and then the broader cultural space. So what the 2-day consulting ended with, wow, there's an opportunity here. We're not sure exactly what it is, but you know, we wanted to work together and wanted to learn more. And unlike a lot of projects that we are pitched, they didn't want to jump in and say, let's make this game. Rather, the idea was, let's really study the space. Let's go into what we call a landscape and opportunity analysis phase, which is a 3 to 4 month phase to really understand the education sector, the consumer sector, the social service sector, understand how games can be effective, how they can build profitable, scalable revenue streams, but mission aligned with meaningful impact. And we didn't have a preconceived notion of exactly what games we were going to make, but we knew that if we were going to do it, it was going to be a marathon, not a sprint, that this was going to be a deep partnership, and that we were going to do a portfolio-based approach. And the council was incredibly thoughtful in terms of how they were thinking about it. They challenged us, we challenged them. It was truly an equal partnership. We did a lot in that phase, but this particular slide I think was interesting. One of the projects we did is we looked at how indigenous cultures were represented in movies, in games, in comics and graphic novels, in various forms of popular media. And we kind of broke it down into these categories of appropriating, and there's sadly a lot of appropriation, you know, sampling, kind of taking pieces totally out of context just for some sort of entertainment effect. Very, very serious depiction, like very serious documentaries where absolute authenticity was the key. And where we ended up is we really want to infuse what we do with the values and the mission of the indigenous cultures and the Alaskan Natives elders. And that was very valuable to go through that whole process. We also went through very rigorous financial planning. So when we were looking at the independent game space, we were looking at games like Journey, you heard Robin earlier, Limbo, Brave, for you, those of you in the indie game space, really interesting indie games that that go around traditional box product distribution, have digital distribution, and we, through networks that we have in the game industry, we looked at the economics of those games, and we found some very interesting correlations that in the genres we were interested in, games that had a certain Metacritic level had a very consistent profitability. And these were the ones that were really challenging the medium. So that gave us a confidence that there was a business model in the consumer space. We spent a lot of time in the education space saying, how do we take a meaningful amount of learning in the classroom so that we're either replacing a capital purchase or replacing time? So we did, and even in the social service space, how can we develop solutions that at a cost per beneficiary really justify a capital purchase, even if it's a third-party player? So we went through this, and where we ended up was we got some top talent from the commercial game industry. A guy, I used to run the studios at Activision, a commercial game company, many years ago, and one of our top designers, for those of you who've been around the block, Pitfall, MechWarrior 2, Interstate 76, he then turned around the Tomb Raider franchise, multi-billion-dollar franchise. For some reason, this project got under his skin. He decided to join us as a consultant, then as a creative director on the project, and he's now joined full-time, and he's handpicking a world-class team. All of that came through this research phase, and all of that resulted, as Gloria mentioned, in that we greenlit a consumer product, we greenlit a educational curriculum-based product. A lot of you heard the Historia presentation, our two star teachers are up here. And as we were building out this portfolio, we realized this is more than even a product partnership. This is really two companies that need to be in each other's shoes and really building this together. So we did an equity swap. We're on each other's boards, and it's truly a joint venture. So I don't know whether you want to add. I was going to then go through some slides and really give you kind of a taste, and maybe we can annotate it as we go through it. This is mostly around our consumer game, which is the game-based cultural storytelling. We have some literature out front. And this will give you a sense of kind of what the process looks like. It's been, of all the projects I've worked on over the many, many years in the game industry and even the film industry, I've never worked with such an exciting, integrated group like this.
I believe it was last summer when Alan and Mike came back to the state and we called meetings of our elders, of our youth, and some of our staff. And we spent a couple of days together really being thoughtful about the development of the consumer game and wanting to be true to the authenticity of the game. So in the previous slide, you saw, intergenerational kind of reflection of who we are within our staff and some of our community members. The next slide is, this slide is a picture of Claire Swan. Claire Swan is the CITC chairperson. She is a respected Dena'ina elder, and she'd probably get mad if I told you this, but she's in Alaska and I'm in New York. And she is, if you can believe this, around 85. And this woman is amazing. It was interesting when we were involved in the conversations as we were about ready to close the deal with Eline, and Mike said, this is a risky business, and that we have to be really thoughtful about all of this. And she listened, and she just said, after a long pause, she said, Mike, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Now let's just do it because it's right. So this is our chair who actually got it. And when she got her arms around game making, she reflected on a story where she said when she learned how to read, how it opened the world as a young person in a village in Alaska, opened the world to her, and she felt like this is what games can do for young people around the world, is broaden their world, broaden their learning base. The other elder that you see in that slide his name is Willie Hensley, and he wrote a great book called, I think, 50 Days from Tomorrow. And it's really, he's a very thoughtful elder and cultural bearer in our state.
So this is Sean, the creative director that I mentioned. We spent a lot of time at the Smithsonian exhibit in Anchorage and just really kind of not only getting to know the folks, but really getting to know the whole world and the artifacts and feeling it. And I mean, Sean spent forever just kind of staring at some of the stuff. And when you start to see some of the images of the game, you'll see this world starting to get infused in the game.
The museum actually opened up all their storage to us and to the game team, and brought out some of their, not only their oldest pieces, but their experts. So it was really helpful. I thought it was also really important that we take not only the team had to come to Alaska in January. Well, this last February, guess where we went? To Barrow, Alaska. We went above the Arctic Circle.
Minus 30 degrees.
Yeah, and it was warm for that time of year. Not a lot of light. I think this was probably the middle of the day. So the team met with local elders, met with many different students. We spent a significant amount of time at the Inupiaq Heritage Center, and they are the experts in the region that really have all of the information, both from their stories and from educational material, and they were very, very helpful in opening their information to us. But this here is a young girl. Her grandmother works in the Barrow School District, and it was great because the game team wanted to have local food, and I said, really? You know, there's not a lot of options in Barrow, Alaska, other than a couple of pizza joints and Mexican joints. But so she said, why don't you come over to eat, right? And I said, oh, well, that's perfect. So when we got to her house, she had muktuk there, that's well meat, and we had fresh tom cod. I think we had a gudak, which is Eskimo ice cream, and it was really great because when you walked into the kitchen, there was like a bearded seal with the head cut off in the kitchen being bled out, because that was what was going to be for dinner the next couple of nights.
Yeah, I mean, it was fascinating. This young girl, we had a working prototype of the game. You know, immediately picked up the controller, is running through the game, is commenting with the game designers, providing feedback, and then 2 hours later, she's carving the muktuk in a traditional fashion. I mean, it was really kind of a remarkable juxtaposition.
And the relationship with the Arctic Slope community is significant. Our first game will take place in the Arctic, and the protagonist will be a young Inupiaq girl.
So, I mean, these are some of the comments. I mean, the sessions were really tough. I mean, the Alaskan Native artists, the elders, the youth, the game designers, I mean, they were really challenging each other. A lot of learning had to happen on both sides. So, I mean, these are just some of the quotes that we pulled. And we documented everything, and we are documenting everything. And the trip that we made to Barrow fundamentally transformed the game design, spending a lot of time with the Inupiaq community, and just seeing that it's not one monolithic community. There are a lot of different opinions, but there really are themes around interdependence, around intergenerational wisdom, around resiliency and grit. There are things that really transcend. And I think that when we talk about game-based cultural storytelling, we look at themes that really transcend time and place. And great storytelling, whether it's oral storytelling, written storytelling, movies, have truly themes that transcend time and place, but are told with great craft. And that's when they last. And that's what we're trying to do in the interactive, player-driven space. So here are some shots. Here you can get a sense of some of the images that inspired the team and how it's being translated into the game itself. And actually, our art director is coming in tonight and will be part of our workshop tomorrow if you're interested. See, it was interesting. The first image of the girl was beautiful, but we looked at it and we all realized that's a Disney image. And even though it looked beautiful and people liked it, it was a Disney image. It didn't capture the essence and soul. And so, you know, Dima just kept going back and back until she really got it working with the CITC team. So we hope it's a little bit of a different look than you've seen, and that it's really organic. So, you know, you saw Sean and the team looking at the traditional boat. The traditional boat is now in the game, and this is traditional hunting. So it's just a tease of what the game looks like. So I'm going to pause there.
She's bird hunting in that shot there.
Yeah. So why don't I pause there? We have just under 10 minutes just to see if there's any questions about the partnership, about the products, really anything that might be relevant to multi-stakeholder partnerships. Yeah.
I put people at projects at the United Nations, and I look at this in terms of the indigenous people's efforts at the UN, which is at the highest level that you can get. So I'm wondering, what do you see as a future for other indigenous communities, and what elements do you want them to see in this that might say that they can do something that spoke about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the question is, the gentleman works with the UN. How could this process be relevant to other indigenous cultures? Do you want to take a pass and then I'll weigh in?
You know, we had a lot of conversation about ensuring that we stay true to the authenticity of our stories, that we bring our voice into the process. And at the same time, of course, when this game goes to market, we want to make money. And so as a result of being thoughtful about the process, what we're doing is we're videotaping where we can, we're building a story of how this works. Because we know instinctively that there are many different indigenous groups around the world that will find affinity with this project, and indigenous groups that we can inspire to tell their own story, whatever that might be. And so we believe that as we model this process, that we will have something to give to the world as a result. But I want to be really clear that, you know, we are the first indigenous-based video gaming company in the United States, but we want to break and shatter those boundaries where we're going to be developing in partnership with Eline products that will move far beyond the indigenous barriers. That we're talking about making games for the global market.
Yeah, and we're documenting everything that we do, both so that we can learn, and because again, this is a portfolio, this is not a one-off. So we really want to understand the process better, but everything we're going to share. So as we release our games, we're going to share all the process, what we've learned, how things have changed in the process, how we do our multi-stakeholder partnership, both on a business level and on a game design level and an operational level. And ideally, we can do this with other indigenous cultures, and as Gloria mentioned, other cultures that may not be indigenous. So it is very important. I mean, we have to be careful not to get to Greatest Hits Volume 2 before we have a hit single, but we're very, very thoughtful that we want to share our best practices.
And just to give you a concrete example of what's come up in the process, you know, the game design team, as Alan said, they're world-class and they're amazing, but they think through a Western frame, right? And that's who they are, what they know. And so bringing in our cultural bearers and bringing in different people from the community that says, no, listen to what I'm saying to you. We need to think differently about this. And creating the time and space to have thoughtful dialogue and to understand one another is what it takes. Sometimes you have to go fast. To go fast, you have to slow down and listen to one another. And that's what we're learning. And it's messy. It's not easy.
It's interesting because, you know, people expect a lot of talk about how the game designers need to really listen and understand the different voices and values. But I have to say that the Inlet Tribal Council has taken the time to really listen to the game designers, because that's, you know, it's an equal partnership, and really understanding the complexities of game design and the business of game design, you know, so that when these difficult decisions are made, because they're not 1 and 0, they're not right and wrong, there's a lot of texture to these decisions, both sides have to be coming from enough of a knowledge base, enough of a respect base, and that's been absolutely fascinating. Yeah?
I'd be interested in knowing how you're working together to develop the story.
To develop
The story.
the story. Interesting. You know, so I do want to stress that we're doing both the consumer product. We're also doing the social studies curriculum. We're going to be doing workforce development in the social services sector. All of them actually have at its core storytelling in some form, and all of them have at its core the player is a protagonist in the game and in the real world. Like, those are themes that run through everything. So the nature of the story is actually still very much evolving as we do the game development. I think when the team, and that's the team on both sides, thinks about the story, they think about the pillars and the themes. They think about intergenerational wisdom. So the framing of the story of one generation to another is one of the components of the story. So it's a framing of a story within a story, or a story within a game. the notion of the themes of interdependence and resiliency and interdependence with nature, interdependence with your family, with your village. These are things that provide pillars to what the stories are, because we're not telling one myth. We're not saying, here's a myth and we're going to tell that story. We're really infusing it with the values and the tone of the myths that are out there and the themes. But it's not like we can tell you, here is the story right now. It is still evolving.
And the reason why we are doing the first consumer game based on the Arctic, as you all know, there's a lot of attention on the Arctic right now, and they're calling it the last frontier. I thought that's what Alaska was, but I guess we have now a new last frontier in the Arctic. And you know, we looked for stories that ran across all major 7 indigenous tribal groups in the state, and so that's what you'll see a collection of these stories and myths that we all find in common within Alaska.
Yeah, and the consumer products, we call gateway products, because they're not designed to be teaching games per se. They're really designed to fire your imagination around new ideas and themes, and then we provide around the game pathways that you can go into to follow. When we do something like a social studies curriculum, we call it foundations, because there we really are going into meaningful learning in the classroom. And they have a little bit of a center of gravity in terms of how we prioritize story, mechanics, and integration into different contexts. A consumer context on the PlayStation or Xbox is very different than a teacher teaching something with a smart board. Yeah. There's 2. I have one in the back first.
Interested in how you sort of, just thinking about a story we heard from Disney people once about how they had 2 versions of the Pirates of the Caribbean entertainment piece. One was much more successful than the other because of how they managed the transition, the sort of invitation to play, people transitioning from outside in. I'm wondering, since you guys are talking so much about myths and beliefs, and your audience, you were going to be dealing with effectively 2 audiences, people, some are sort of within that world frame, or that framework, and people outside. I'm wondering how you might be negotiating those transitions for such different communities.
Okay.
Well, we continue to negotiate that. It's an ongoing conversation, and I think it will be as you know, we finish the game. So it's just an interesting dilemma. As I said, we want to really stay true to the authenticity of our culture, but at the same time, we realize that, you know, we're in a market where we need to sell a product, and so we're negotiating what it looks like, and that's why we have so many of our stakeholder groups that are there to really help us verify and in some ways give us some soft approvals of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. We believe that in our game of, you know, as Alan talked about, interdependence and some of the other values that you'll find, that there are points of affinity that touch all of us in the world, and that's what we're trying to build upon.
A great sort of example of that is we're debating now how much is in a local Inupiat language or not. And it's a really interesting, it's a beautiful language, it's a complex language. How much of the game can be played without understanding the language? These are questions we are right in the middle of debating. And the key is that, again, we do it coming at it from the same perspective. What those answers will be, it's hard to know at this point, but it's a great question, and it's one that comes up almost every day. There's another question? Yep.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. One, it sounds like this project has the potential to reframe the conversation about the relationship between people and nature. And I'm wondering if you guys have thought about a couple of things. One is partnerships. I thought one of your statements might be fishing game, the National Park Service, that sort of thing. So we'd love to hear your comments about that.
Do you know what we call fishing game in the state of Alaska?
Yeah, I do.
F&G. You know, in the state, we are really connected to the land, and I agree. I think this is a great opportunity to provide an experience for people around the world to be connected to the land. And so we are looking for those natural partnerships. We've reached out to not only the museum, but some of the local experts, but mainly because of where this first game is taking place, we actually reached out to Arctic Slope Regional Corporation, and they have all of that expertise within their house. And so what we want to do is make sure that we are being kind of broad in our partnership and thoughtful.
Well, when we were playing an early prototype up in Barrow, the power of nature in the game and the harshness of nature and the girl's survival being really attuned to nature, it's another part of interdependence, is very much a theme that is central to the game and I believe is universal. So whether that tactically emerges in a certain partnership, that's something we'll navigate, but from a thematic level, it is right at the core of a lot of what this game is about. So I think we're at 0. I think we have to stop now. So thank you very much.